Thanks, everybody. My name is Ted, and I'm here to talk about components, specifically Angular Dart components. I am a infrastructure tech lead that specifically works on widgets for many of the applications that we have at Google. And last year I was up here and I was talking at the Dart Summit about the way that Google teams use Dart and Angular to build their web apps and how they are very productive in doing so. And it's been quite a great year for us. Maybe you haven't seen it, but we've had tons of launches. We have a lot of products out there. We have many users coming to our applications in production. And we're getting some reviews back, and we're really liking these reviews. Stuff like it's sleek, comfortable feel, and approachable sophistication apparent throughout this new design. The new responsive user interface that makes it easy and more efficient to use. Nice material design animations all throughout the website, which obviously help making the overall look and feel infinitely better. Now, I don't know about infinitely better, but if a user says that about your application, you're doing the right things. This one's my favorite. We haven't run into any delays in the new AdWords UI and 0 loading screens. Even more, some tasks now seem almost instantly completed. Now, they're not quite instantly completed, but it is something that we strive for. And these reviews came from 3 very separate applications that we've launched in the last year. But you can see common patterns. They're loving the new UI, they're loving the speed, they're loving the material design. And all of these 3 teams are throughout the whole world. 2 of them are from Europe itself. We're going to have one from Dan is going to talk about a little bit later, and David's going to talk about how they've used Dart to make their applications great. But something that's common between these is they're actually all using the same widgets. And it allows our applications to get a lot of velocity so they can all get these wonderful reviews, that they can get feedback from their users, that they're just delighted to use it. And it's something that we really strive for in our applications. But we've heard from our external developments that UI development can still feel like this for you. It's a little slow. You don't really want to have to write that common button. You don't have to want to write that common tab component. You just kind of want to have to work on the application logic that's special to your app, that will make your users delighted, and you don't really have to worry about all this other stuff. And Dart does a pretty good job with the core libraries that lets you get up and running really quickly, but we want the development to feel like this, like you're in a rocket ship, right? And this is the way that development inside of Google feels like. You can really concentrate on your application and your logic to delight your users and make sure that you're doing really great stuff rather than worrying about some of this more simple stuff. But we've heard from you that there's a piece missing, that there's something that's keeping you guys from making these wonderful applications yourself and making it hard to get those wonderful reviews that we saw. So today, we announced Angular Dart components, production quality widgets for everyone. Now today we're just giving you a preview of what you'll come to see. We've got some kinks to work out still for our general release, but we really want to get you excited about using the widgets and allow you to get some of these wonderful reviews, some of these wonderful applications for you yourself. Now, this is not just a solitary effort. There's not just a team of 5 people at Google doing this. There's actually hundreds of Googlers that have contributed to these widgets. Many of them are in this room today, but there's many more across the entire world contributing code and making sure that they're production quality and they work well for their users and for their applications. And we get many more bug requests from them too, and to validate that they're working correctly. And we're very excited to bring you into our community, to have you use these components and help us and to make them better and so that you can get the wonderful usefulness out of them. So today, I really wanted to talk about 3 key principles that our infrastructure team works on everything that we work with, widgets specifically. And that's velocity, usability, and efficiency. And Farhat and Matan already talked to you a little bit about this on how we do it with Angular itself, but I'm going to talk to you about how we do it in our widgets. First, velocity, letting you concentrate on your product. You don't have to worry about the widgets itself. We provide a set of material design core widgets written in Angular Dart for you so that you can quickly work on the application logic that is important to you. There's over 100 widgets that we have internally at Google, and we're going to show you some today. It was actually just published before I came up here, and you can take a look. And many of the ones that you see on this screen, they're going to be available. This isn't ready to be released yet, but eventually we're going to give you a gallery. Internally to Google, we have a gallery that actually allows our developers to quickly see what widgets are available. It gives them documentation about how to use the widget, and also gives them examples so they can see how the developer meant the widget to be used. It allows us to quickly and easily see what's possible with the widget and also how we could quickly get those widgets into our production and into our application. Something else that we use a lot within, and this isn't quite ready for release yet, but we'll see it soon, is that we use Sass a lot in our components. These Sass, it isn't just that the components have Sass. We actually provide mix-ins and variables so that you can have the material design language within your component, so that you can semantically have your CSS be very semantic, and you can semantically say what you are meaning to do. This is valuable for what we have within Google because it's no longer do we have just variables mixed in throughout our CSS. Instead, it's very easy to make our CSS readable, and we can figure out exactly what the designer meant for the component and also what the developer meant when they're implementing it. So instead of having all these random variables for material shadow, now we can just say, we want this component to have material shadow, and it automatically gets it. And it's clear that that's what the developer was trying to do. You're not copy and pasting these values from somewhere. Now, Matan already explained how Angular is bringing you page objects if you want to use them to make your testing easier. We're also going to provide page objects for the component itself. And this makes it that much easier for you to write tests when you use the component. You actually get the logic, and it's a very simple interface to start testing the component instead of having to write all this code on a component that you didn't even write yourself just to test it. So in this example, we see that we have the material input page object, and we can just have simple methods to interact with it, like being able to type values into the input and to be able to see what the value of that input is. Usability. We want the components to be usable for both our developers, but also for our users. Accessibility is for everybody. It's not just for a certain set of users. If your UIs are accessible, they make them easier to use for everybody. Me, you, my dad, everybody. And we actually gave a preview of this to our GDEs, and we asked them what they thought about these components. And you could just take my word for it that we think that our APIs are pretty nice, but I wanted to give you some quotes for them about what they thought. Monty, who couldn't be with us today, he said that coding them has a great feel. They have syntactic brevity. They seem lighter and better integrated into my app. Fasil, who is here today and is going to give a presentation later, he said, yes, yes, yes. I love this. Super easy to configure. This is the kind of reactions that we want from all of you. So how did we do this? How does it look like? Well, one thing is we want these widgets to look like idiomatic HTML. If you notice, there's these three values right here are actually doing all the same thing. But the first one looks like a very, just like a standard HTML element that you might find in your browser. You can just quickly say that this button is disabled, and it will be disabled. The second one works too, if you want to pass it the string. And the third one is if you actually need a binding for it. So this allows it to be dynamic. This actually does save a little bit of performance also, because in the first two, you know that it's static. You know that it's never going to change, so it's a little bit faster. And then the third one will give you that dynamic nature that you're looking for. Okay, technical difficulties. Oh. Sorry about that. We also work very, very closely with the Angular Dart team. I'm in their office pretty much once a week. They can attest to this, bugging them all the time. And we want to make sure that the components are idiomatic Angular Dart, that it's the Dart that it's the Angular that you would expect to write in your own applications. It's the Angular team would like to see written for your applications. Notice that his outputs like you would expect with the events that you come to love or hate from Angular, and that it uses the standard forms library like ng model, so that it just works well with the rest of Angular. Another thing that we want to provide is we want to make it really easy to use our models. So in each of these widgets, they're all backed by the same model, the selection model class. And while it would make it easy to switch the widgets if you needed to, that doesn't happen very often. The real benefit of this is that you can learn an API once, you can learn the selection model API once, and then you can use it over and over again very quickly in tons of different widgets. So you're not learning a different model for every single widget that you want to use. And it has accessibility built in. We really want it to make it easy for you guys to have accessible applications that work well for your users. In this example, you'll see this throughout all of our widgets. We have this trigger pattern instead of just listening for click. We want the user to be able to interact with it with the mouse or with the keyboard, whatever way they see fit, whatever works better for them. So we have this trigger pattern that we see. Also, things such as buttons and tabs and things and inputs, when you have it disabled, it will automatically set the ARIA properties for you so that it makes sense in the browser too, that if you're still getting accessibility. So when you say something's disabled, then it's going to work right for accessibility also. Now, while we can't cover all of your use cases, we hope that we make it that much easier to make your application accessible. Efficiency, the last topic. Performance is the feature in our applications. Performance is very important to us. I think you've heard a lot about it today, about how we're trying to make everything very, very performant and keep everything fast. Our users love it when our applications are fast. It's the thing that they want the most. It's the thing that they care about the most. And our widgets need to be able to support that. One way that we do this is we actually have latency tests, like Farhat was telling you earlier today, that are run on our widgets every single code change. And it allows us to build graphs like this. This is a real graph that came from one of our widgets. And if you notice, the top line, that is the cold start performance. That's the performance the very first time that it's initialized on the page. Down here, that is the warm performance. That's what happens for every other time that it's initialized. It's a lot faster. This is because that's going through a JS cold loop. It's good amount slower, and it's pretty fast when you've actually rendered it once. But we want to make sure both numbers are very good and very performant. So you can notice there's a pretty big hump here in this benchmark. So what happened? Well, my coworker Zach, he actually came through, sent in a CL. He was changing some of the, I think, accessibility on something. And all of a sudden, I got an email that night that said that there was a performance regression. So I emailed Zach and I said, hey, did you expect this? Was this what you were expecting? Did you expect it to take about 7 milliseconds longer for this simple action? He said, no, I didn't really think it was going to be any performance. I thought it was going to be performance neutral. I'll go investigate it. So he took a look, and it turns out that the API call that he was calling was more expensive than he imagined. And he switched it with a different one. And you can notice that the latency graph came back down. And he actually made it a little bit faster than it was before he started. Right? So we can quickly see when things go wrong, when things are hurting our performance or making it better. Also, when Chrome drops, our graphs change too. So we've had instances where we've had performance regressions in our widgets, and we've actually went to the Chrome team and we said, hey, Did you expect this? Is this regression was something that you wanted within your browser? And they said, oh, let me take a look at it. And they came back, and 2 versions later in Chrome, we actually had it fixed, right? So we can actually catch other problems too. Another problem that we're trying to solve is layout thrashing. So naively in your application, it's pretty easy to read a value from the DOM, change that value, and then reread it. And you might think that this is okay, but in fact, what you're doing is you're causing the browser to reflow and to re-render the page. This can be pretty expensive. It can be 15 milliseconds or longer to just between these 2 method calls, right? And that's something we want to try to avoid as much as we can. So within your own application, it might be, or within your own simple widget, it might be easy to move all the reads before all the writes and make sure that it happens in the right way and that you don't trigger reflow. But that's really hard to do when you're talking about the very large applications that we build at Google. You can't control all the source code to make sure that the DOM is coordinated in the right way. So we actually have a service. It's the DOM service, and this is in the preview. It allows you to say that you want to schedule a read or schedule a write, and make sure that the reads happen before the mutate, so that we don't get that we don't trigger that reflow. Then we're not paying the price for the layout. We use this in all our widgets, and you can use them in your applications too to make sure that your render speed is really, really performant. Lastly, for performance, I want to talk about change detection optimization. So Farhad already talked to you about how change detection can make your application pretty slow. If you have a naive application, it's pretty easy to just use change detection. Everything will work fast enough, and you won't really notice any slowdown. But when we're talking about the size of the application that we build at Google, change detection starts becoming a problem really quickly. And our components actually help you with this as much as we can. We enable you to do better things for your change detection. And we do that in 2 ways. One way is that if we have anything that's off the screen, anything that the user isn't actually seeing right now, but we need it in our application, think of like a like a tab, right? If you have 5 tabs on your screen, you're only showing the content of 1, and the other 4 aren't being shown. But naively today, if you just build tabs really simply, all of those tabs are going to be in your change detection tree. They're all going to be part of your application. What we do is we allow you to mark that the tabs, that this part of the code may not be on the screen to the user right now. It allows us to remove it from the change detection tree and keep your application just a little bit faster. The other thing that we provide is that the widgets themselves enable on push, and they will soon enable set state, right? This allows you to keep your application fast, because if you want to use these cool new features, everything in your subtree, if you want to make a component on push or use set state, everything needs to support that capability. So the components won't keep you behind, right? They do support on push today, and they'll soon support set state. So it allows you to really build these fast applications if you wish. If you just want to use the standard change detection, that works too, and everything will just work fine. So again, I want to thank you from all the people at Google. This is really a labor of love for us. There's, like I said, hundreds of engineers worked into this. We all love these components. I have people that work on these components that really don't even want to do their day job because they really love working on the components itself. So I hope that you guys will get a lot of use out of it. I want to see next year, I want to see great reviews that we saw for our applications. I want to start seeing them for your applications. So go out and start building some great apps so that we can have some wonderful stories to tell next year. Thank you.